Morning. Okay. Good morning, Humber Valley. I think we're going to get started here on our hymn sing today. I'm Joan Belford, and I'm your host for today. And I must say, when Judith asked me to be a host of one of the hymn sings, I thought, yeah, that's all I need is something else to do. But when I got into doing a little bit of research on who wrote the hymns and what they're all about, it was really fun. I really enjoyed it, and I hope that maybe some of you will volunteer to Judith to maybe take on this post along the line. You learn a lot, and it's lots of fun. It only takes a couple of hours. So our first hymn this morning is going to be Rise Up, Rise Up. And the writer of this hymn is Linnea Good. And yes, I'm saying her name the way she wants it said. Linnea was here. Remember 2 or 3 years ago, Mark brought her in with her husband, David Johnson, who's a drummer. And they provided the whole service for us and taught us quite a few of their songs. And Linnea started out, it says, as a children's animator at a Sunday school when she was 12 years old. I think that means basically what we would call a Sunday school teacher. And she has gone on from then. She travels all over the country doing music. She's recorded 10 albums. And she says her goal is to enliven faith through story and song. So we're going to enliven ourselves this morning by singing Rise Up, Rise Up. First hymn. Okay, that's a start. Now, our next hymn is Breathe on Me, Breath of God. A couple of weeks ago in one of his sermons, Trevor said that worship has nothing to do with the songs that we sing. And I would like to respectfully disagree with that. I think that that the songs we sing are a great part of worship, and that if we really listen to the words and hear the tunes, that sometimes we're praising God, sometimes we're telling the stories of Jesus, and sometimes in this hymn, breathe on me, breath of God, fill me with life anew, that I might live as thou wouldst live and do what thou wouldst do. To me, that is praying aloud. We're coming along here. The next hymn that we're going to sing is one of my personal favorites, as was that one. Make Me a Channel of Your Peace. And this hymn has always been associated with St. Francis of Assisi. And I had the good fortune to be with the choir in Italy a few years ago, and we went to the town of Assisi and saw the friary where Francis practiced. And of all the churches and cathedrals that I've been in the world, this one had the most holy feeling. It was one of the simplest cathedrals I've ever been in, but there was such a sacred feeling. You really got the feeling that you were in a holy place. So when I was doing the research on this, I was quite disappointed to find out that St. Francis may not have actually written this particular prayer. The earliest, it's not mentioned in any of his writings, and the earliest recollection they can find of it was in about 1912 and in a French Catholic small diocese there. But it has been used a tremendous amount since then, and I wanted to read you a couple of the things that have happened with it. And the prayer was set to music by Johann Sebastian von Tempelhof, who was from South Africa and who had become a Third Order Franciscan. The hymn is an anthem of the Royal British Legion and usually sung at its annual Festival of Remembrance. In 1997, it was part of the funeral of the Princess Diana. And it's sung by Sinead O'Connor on the Princess Diana tribute album. The hymn was also sung for the religious wedding ceremony of Prince Albert of Monaco to South African Charlene Wittstock in 2011. The prayer is referenced in the Alcoholics Anonymous book, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, and is often known to AA members as the Step 11 prayer, which I found quite interesting. And this also is very interesting. Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House in the US, quoted this prayer when she became Speaker of the House in 2007, and she invoked it again at the opening of the evening House session following the January 6th, 2021 uprising in the Capitol. We will hope that it brings more peace than that did. I think because it's so much associated with the kinds of thoughts that he did express in his writings, but there is none of his prayers or written things that he left behind had any of this in it. I love that hymn. Eternal Father, Strong to Save is a hymn that I always associate with Remembrance Day. It was often sung at our church. It doesn't really have anything particular to do with Remembrance Day, but it is used a lot by various Marine units. And it was written by William Whiting, an Anglican churchman from Winchester, United Kingdom. Whiting grew up near the ocean on the coast of England, and at the age of 35 had felt his life spared by God when a violent storm nearly claimed the ship he was traveling on, instilling a belief in God's command over the rage and calm of the sea. As headmaster of the Winchester College Chorister School some years later, he was approached by a student about to travel to the United States who confided in Whiting an overwhelming fear of the ocean voyage. Whiting shared his experience of the ocean and wrote this hymn to counter his faith and calm his student. And the music for this hymn was written by John Bacchus Dykes, and this was a musical prodigy who was playing the organ at the local church by the time he was 10 and played other instruments as well. But he wrote a number of well-known hymns, including Jesus, Lover of My Soul, Nearer My God to Thee, the Holy, 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 and Praise to the Holiest in the Height. Those are all hymns that we know. So Eternal Father, Strong to Save. This is a rousing tune. You need to stand for this one. Praise to the Lord the Almighty. Now, this particular hymn was written by Joachim Neander, who was born in Bremen, Germany, and he wrote approximately 60 hymns and composed many tunes, and nearly all his hymns are triumphant expressions of praise. Neander, though only 30 years of age when he died, was a noted scholar in theology, literature, and music, as well as pastor of the Reformed Church in Dusseldorf, Germany. He wrote this hymn the year he died while battling tuberculosis. The Julian Dictionary of Hymnology calls this hymn a magnificent hymn of praise, perhaps the finest production of its author. Now, the hymn was translated by Catherine Winkworth, who was born in London, England in 1927. She was a pioneer in the higher education of women. Miss Winkworth was regarded as one of the finest translators of the German language while expressing the text in English, her translation. Her translation helped to make the German hymn popular in England during the 19th century, although a German noted scholar has said that she may have changed the tone of it a little bit to be a little more English and a little less Germanic. The music in this one, as I said, when I was doing the research for this, I learned an awful lot. The music said Strassland Giesenbach, and I did a lot of research to try to find out who this Giesenbach guy was, and then I found out that means in German hymn book. So it was in the Strassland hymn book. isn't it wonderful to hear that organ? Yeah. For the faithful who have answered. This is based on a passage from the Bible, Matthew 25:21. His master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much more. Enter into the joy of your master." And this is the story of the 3 talents that were buried that we know about quite a bit. And the writer of this hymn, she was born in 1955, so this is a more contemporary writer. Sylvia Dunstan attributes her love of song to her grandparents, who kept song alive in the family and entrusted Sylvia's formal music education to one of the nuns at the local convent. In the early 70s, the youth choir at church relied on the music of one of the medical mission sisters and secular pop music. But Sylvia began writing songs around that time and says, "But these are now well consigned to the dustbins of time." And the merciful curtain of oblivion. And then she started to write more songs, and she decided after a while that she really was better at lyrics than tunes. And she said she found that congregational resistance to unfamiliar tunes led me to use the hymn book tunes as the vehicle for the text. I think probably people around here could relate to that. She earned her bachelor degree from York University, and she has graduate degrees in theology and divinity from Emmanuel College. She was ordained to the Hamilton Conference of the United Church, and during her career, she served as a minister, a prison chaplain, and editor of a Canadian Worship Resource General Gathering. Sylvia Dunstan died on July 25th, 1993, almost 4 months to the day after being diagnosed with her cancer at age 38. She left behind a ministry that combined a compassionate concern for the needy and distraught with a consuming love of liturgy. And this is another tune that is based on the German hymn book. Okay, I think that's one we're not as familiar with. The next piece that we're going to do is called For the Healing of the Nations. Trevor, as you know, has been doing a whole series on Revelations, and this hymn, the title of it comes from one of the last things that he preached about, where he, in Revelation 22:2, down the middle of the great street of the city, on each side of the river, stood the tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, yielding its fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations. Now, if ever we needed the healing of the nations, that would be now. So let's sing this one fervently. Let's hope the COP26 was singing that one. Precious Lord, take my hand. The words to this piece are written by Thomas Dorsey, but it's not the Tommy Dorsey we think of leading the big band. It's another very well-known African-American composer named Thomas Dorsey. And Thomas Dorsey wrote this tune in response to the inconsolable bereavement at the death of his wife, who died in childbirth, and his infant son as well. So it must have taken some faith for him to write this song. Now, this was the favorite hymn of Reverend Martin Luther King. And Reverend Martin Luther King died on April 4th, 1968. And his last words before he was shot were spoken to Ben Branch, who was a musician who was going to play later that day at a fundraiser that they were going to. And they would sing a special song since it was his favorite. And Dr. King said, "Ben, play Precious Lord, and play it real pretty." And it was Martin Luther King's favorite song, and he often invited gospel singer Mahalia Jackson to sing it, and she sang it at his funeral. And opera singer Leontine Price sang it at the state funeral of President Lyndon B. Johnson, and Aretha Franklin sang it at Mahalia Jackson's funeral in 1972. And now we come to our final hymn, which is Take Up His Song of Peace. And it's interesting to me that I could find very little about the person who wrote this song. It was written by Laura Herman in 2005. And obviously, Laura is alive and doing well at this time. But I find it really unusual that we don't write up much about people until they're dead. Probably when Laura passes on, there will be quite a biography of her somewhere or other, but it isn't out there at the moment. So we're just going to finish up with Take Up His Song of Peace, and let us all do that. Thank you all. Please go out and enjoy your half-hour break, and then we'll be back for the service.
Can I see your list for a second?